Welcome in, everybody. It's week 3 of Esports Weekly. Thanks so much for joining us. We've got a great show ahead of us. I'll say that at the beginning of every show, because we always will. We're going to be going over, of course, everything that you may have missed from the SPL and the minor league, and of course the SCL as well. But most importantly, what we do on the show is look ahead to what we're going to see in the SPL in the next coming 2 days. And some debut games coming up for a lot of these teams, so there's a lot of exciting stuff to talk about. Make sure you stick around, including a note about United and their roster situation going into their matchup up against LG. But we'll get to that in a minute. But first, I want to take a look back for a second at what we saw last week, namely FineOK and the solo laner for Team Rival. Look, there was a lot of excitement coming in to this year about Rival in general and FineOK. It kind of flew under the radar, I think. A lot of people were excited about the PBM Arcil duo lane. How is Panicat going to do in mid alongside Captain Twig? And Fine was just kind of there, and I don't think anyone was questioning the pickup of FineOK, but they weren't really talking about it all that much. Well, then some rumblings start coming out. FineOK is doing really well in scrims, you know. Twig and PBM are saying he might just be the best solo laner in the world right now. And then their matchup against Pittsburgh Knights happens, and we haven't seen a dominant performance like that in a long, long time. In fact, it was actually on Adapting's stream that I was watching a couple days ago, where he says that he hasn't felt a solo laner's presence like that in a set since Variety at Season 3 Worlds. That's high praise from a 2-time champion, and for good reason. Look, it's only week 1. They played 2 sets. He looked very, very good in both of them. But there's going to be a lot of hype around FineOK this year. Make sure you check that out. I will say, however, that we can't talk about FineOK and how great he played without mentioning Dignitas. And despite FineOK's great play, how Dignitas was able to take the set up against Rival. Talking about a team that, you know, just like FineOK kind of for Rival, this is a team that a lot of people weren't really talking that much about. Oh, it was all about the new Rival roster. Have you seen Pittsburgh Knights' stacked roster? No one's going to be able to beat them. You know, they're really good. Don't forget about Splice, all this kind of stuff. Oh, what's going on with Dig? They're fine. They'll be good. You know, who knows? Well, they'll probably be top half of the league, but no one got really amped about this team, and I just don't understand why that hype isn't around this squad. I mean, this is a squad last year and the year before that, yes, they had Zeros and Arcil on that roster, but the expectations were through the roof, and by picking up Ataraxia and Heroin, 2 of our more storied pros, they lose some momentum? I don't know. It just feels a little bit weird to me. Dignitas looks like the best team we've seen so far in my mind. Rival is rivaling them. Unintended. But they only have played a couple weeks. Dignitas over the course of 2 weeks has looked really, really good. We get to see them again this upcoming week, so I'm excited to see what we see from them. We're not seeing enough talk about this Dignitas roster, and especially about Ataraxia. I mean, this is a dude that usually is, oh, he's on Obey. He's the nice guy. Everyone loves him, but he's not the crusher in the duo lane. You know, he's not going to beat you up in game. He's kind of beating people up right now. Watch out for the Nate Trix duo lane, man. They're playing really, really well. That was week number 2, of course. We're talking about week number 3 overall, though, on Esports Weekly. On the other side of this break, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about United, and what they have to do is they're waiting for a player to come in and land. There might be a hold the door, he's coming in during picks and bans sort of situation. We'll talk about that on the other side of this break.
Hey, what's good, guys? Tom Badger here next to Avi, and she's got all the business as far as the community is concerned, and we only bring her around when good stuff is happening. So good things are happening. Tell us about it.
Yes, very good things happening over on Mixer. We have launched a ton of new features for Mixer, for SMITE game streams, all kinds of stuff that we want to tell you guys about. So the very first feature that we've launched, which you might already be aware of, is the Mixer point system. So basically, this is a system that lets you accrue Mixer points when you tune in and watch our streams, our esports broadcast, our community streamers. Every amount of time that you spend watching our channel, you start to earn Mixer points. So you just go to mixer.com/SmiteGame or whatever you're watching, and you're going to earn these points for existing. Yes,
that's something
exactly.
I can do. I can do that.
Yeah, anybody
awesome.
can do it.
Sweet.
You just have to go to the account page on highresstudios.com. Make sure your Hi-Res and Mixer accounts are linked, and then tune in to watch a broadcast, and you start earning points. It's really, really easy.
That's easy because we have a ton of broadcasts. We have Console League on Monday, Minor League on Tuesday, Esports Weekly sometimes on Wednesday, but also Patch Notes on Wednesday. Thursday's going to be Pro League. Friday's going to be Pro League.
Yep.
Saturday and Sunday, they tell me to sleep, but then I come back on Monday and do it all over again.
And then there's community streamers all the time too. You have so many good people. So these Mixer points that you're accruing can then be spent in a new store that we've launched in SMITE. We've launched the Mixer store.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
I'm going to have all these
make
Mixer
sense.
points. What do I do with them?
Yep, you spend them in the Mixer store. The store is packed with skins that are now available for purchase with the points that you've earned.
That's cool.
Yeah, and as soon as you've hit 600 points, you get the Crusher Cabrakan skin.
That's cool.
And you don't even have to buy that one. You just get that one for reaching 600.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And the coolest thing, my favorite thing, is the Ember skills that we've launched for Mixer.
So that's the Mixer skills are the things that go in the chat, right?
Yeah.
Like the fish and stuff?
Yeah, the space whales are pretty famous.
So what am I going to get?
We have SPL themed skills for this season. So each team has a unique animated skill. It shows their logo, it shows their tagline, you know, all that good branding stuff.
I like that.
And so you can purchase those with Embers. Go to Mixer.com, get some Embers, load them up, and then fire off some team-specific skills. And you can put a custom message on there, cheer on your favorite team. And the cool part is that all of the proceeds from these skills that you're using in chat, part of them will go back to the teams and support the teams. And then part of it will go back to support the prize pool for major events this season.
That's prize cool.
Yeah. And on top of that, as if that's not enough, every skill that you fire off will earn you extra Mixer points. So you can grind even faster to get all those skins that are in the store.
Did you hear when I said prize cool?
Yes, yes. I try not to acknowledge it, but yes.
I thought it was pretty cool. Well, I thought it was pretty cool.
Not as cool as Mixer skills.
Sure.
And Mixer points.
Mixer
and
points.
The Mixer store.
Mixer store. We got skins, everything. It's going to be sick. That sounds like a lot of fun. So here's the biggest question. When is it going to be implemented?
It's all there now.
Oh, snap.
Yeah.
It's already there.
Yeah, it's already there.
So if you're watching this on Mixer,
yeah,
you're already getting it.
Yeah, you can already do all of the things. All of them.
I'm building stacks.
Yes.
Keep it up, guys. We'll catch you later.
Welcome back, chat. Before we move on, you guys are existing right now, right? And you're also watching on Mixer. So therefore, you're earning Mixer points. Keep it up. You're doing a great job. Here to do a great job to talk about E-United is our E-United correspondent, Anatoly Alexeyanok. Didn't even practice that. Still nailed it.
So natural.
Just got it. It's all up here. Toly, no one's seen E-United play quite yet. And I know they've got some roster stuff going on, but we'll talk about that in just a moment. What about this team just kind of coming in cold? How are they feeling going into their first week?
I mean, I was speaking with Big Man Things behind the scenes, and they're feeling confident against LG, but they feel that they're still a little behind into scrims, at least in terms of what they were able to predict in the meta. They're not really used to it. We'll see how they perform in week number 3 up against LG on Thursday. Friday, they have a tougher opponent in SK. I kind of compare E-United to the Rival situation, where Rival came in cold. They had an epic set against Dignitas, lost that one, but won ultimately against the Knights. This time, I think it might be reversed for E-United, where they might win against LG but struggle against SK.
Where do you think the early expectations for this team are? Do you think people are expecting them to be at top of the league? Do you think that they're expecting them to do very poorly? What are your sort of feelings around the scene?
I think that everyone can rest easy knowing that this is easily a middle-of-the-pack team. They're not going to be the best of the best, but they're not going to certainly be the worst of the worst, with the likes of Ice Baby on the team, you know, Vedium as well in the Hunter position. You can never count out Benji, aka Salt Machine, there doing Kakolan things in Season 4 with E-United. So I think that there's expectations for this team to maybe find some surprise victory against the likes of the Knights, Dignitas, and also SK.
Well, you mentioned Ice Baby during that last little bit, but Ice still on the flight basically on Thursday. He's not going to be able to get in until their set is about to start. So what's their situation for E-United?
This is an interesting situation because he is like last minute ditch effort trying to make it to this match, and if he can't make it, they will be using Chapo.
In the jungle?
In the jungle.
Okay.
Well, I'm not sure if he's going to be playing jungle or not. I would assume so based on the roster.
Yeah, I think he would be.
I think that he's going to be a fantastic aggressive jungler to make calls. He's no stranger to taking the charge there. So as long as he makes it before picks and bans, no matter what game it is, he can play in that game.
Okay, so if Ice lands, you know, right before game 2 picks, or arrives rather right before game 2 picks and bans, because we aren't particularly close to the Atlanta airport. He's going to need some travel time there, so he's going to be on his way, maybe watching the games in the Uber on the way up. and then be able to play depending on when he arrives. So he could come in mid-set. He could be there before the set starts. We're just not really sure.
We're not sure, but I also think that maybe just give him the day off, honestly. Up against LG.
Yeah, he's flying pretty far.
I think that it's fine to just give him the day off, let him rest, let the rest of his teammates do the job here alongside Chapo, get the victory over LG, and then have him well rested on the Friday set against SK Gaming.
I think that's a good call as well. It might be a judgment call. If they're up 2-0 on LG, maybe they just tell Ice, yo, relax, man. You're doing okay. We'll use you tomorrow. If they're down 0-2, you might have to try and jump in. So keep your eye on that. It's going to be an exciting day on Thursday when it comes to E United versus LG. Outside of using Chapo in that match and depending on when Ice lands and all that kind of stuff, how are they feeling against Luminosity? How do you think they match up there?
Well, they said that they were confident against LG. They didn't give the specifics about which player that they're targeting out or anything like that, but I think that when you look at E United, I could compare them to Rival along that caliber, and maybe not as top tier, considering that they took 5 games versus Dignitas, 5 games winning against the Knights, but against a team like LG, where I compare to Trifecta, that could be an easier task for them when we don't know what to expect from LG, and I don't think E United know either, but I think if you just stack up player by player, E United should win this matchup.
That's a fair point. How about their matchup against SK on Friday? That's a team that we've seen a little bit more from so far.
Could be more difficult. It was an 0-3 against Pittsburgh Knights, but it was like the best outcome of an 0-3 where SK was winning those games, and then 3-0 dominant performance on the Trifecta. So I think that against Friday, it's a 50-50. It depends on which SK shows up.
Have to wait and see on that one. Totally, thank you very much. Make sure you're staying tuned to what's going on Thursday because E United's going to have a spicy day ahead of them, that's for sure. On the other side, we'll be talking with another correspondent. I believe that is, yes, Taco on the Luminosity Gaming. We'll talk about what that team is expecting going into their match up against E United.
Hey everyone, Heroic Leap J Nash, Evil Mojo Alyssa, and Titan Isaiah here with some exciting news.
Crossplay and cross-progression for SMITE,
Paladins,
And Realm Royale is live.
players on PC, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch can now play with and against each other.
And by linking your Xbox and Nintendo Switch accounts to a high-res account, you'll be able to enjoy all of your own content and account progress across 3 platforms.
Head over to my.highresstudios.com to link your accounts, and be sure to check out our crossplay and cross-progression FAQ at highresstudios.com/crossplay for more details. We'll continue to forge ahead
On the battleground,
And in the realm.
We just talked to Anatoly about how E United hasn't gotten a chance to play yet and what they could potentially look like, but their opponents also hasn't gotten a chance to play that. And to talk about the other side of the matchup in Luminosity, we've got Taco here, our correspondent for Luminosity Gaming. Taco, we can call a spade here. Not a lot of people are excited about this LG roster. Tell me why they should be a little bit more excited about them.
I think that Luminosity can bring a lot of the unconventional to the current Season 6 meta. You have to remember that there are veteran players like Kiki So Cheeky helping to really lead this roster. And I think that if there's one thing that Kiki has always been able to stay true to throughout his years of competitive play, it's his willingness to kind of explore within the meta. I honestly feel that Luminosity has some potential to be a meta breaker team and can maybe introduce a different style of play that a lot of teams might not be as familiar with.
So Kiki is very experienced there. I mean, he's got a lot of lands and seasons underneath his belt as a competitive player. But Mollusk is new to the SPL. Joshi new to the SPL. Oceans hasn't been around in a long time. Zaylia is the other veteran on this team. Who do you think besides Kiki might be stepping up?
I think that a lot of this has to come from the jungle. So this will be, I think, a very big make it or break it type of year for Mollusk specifically because working alongside of Oceans, even though Oceans hasn't necessarily been around the ringer for a while, I still think that he can keep a track on or keep a hold on his mechanics. And so that'll be a big factor to keep in mind. But Mollusk, for me, I think just needs to bring that level of consistency that Kiki's teams have tended to struggle with throughout their previous years of competitive play. I think that is one thing that is always kind of limited. A lot of the teams that Kiki has been on is just that one week they'll show up really hot, the next week they're super cold. And so there has to be some form of consistency that gets involved here. And I think a lot of that, again, is just going to come off the back of how much can Kiki really, I guess, switch things up.
And he's switching things up quite a bit by moving over to support this time around. I mean, Kiki's played just about every competitive role underneath the sun. I believe he did play at least a split of support before at the SPL level. How do you think that role fits Kiki's playstyle?
I think that it's a good place for him to be experimental, especially right now. It feels as though we're in currently the most versatile support option role that we've ever seen, where it's not necessarily limited to the Guardians any longer. You can play mages, you can play assassins, warriors, just about anything, as long as it complements a comp as far as, like pick isolations are concerned or area denial, things of that sort. But I feel like support also provides Kiki the opportunity to be more of a shot caller, and that's something that I think this team is definitely going to need, because while most teams might traditionally look more towards their jungler for that sort of shot calling aspect, I think that Mollis being more of a rookie to the SPL, it might be a little bit better suited for him to have that previous veteranship from Kiki to help him through that.
How do you think they match up against United in particular? Another team that we haven't seen a lot of quite yet. They haven't gotten a chance to compete. And as I just mentioned with Tolly, they don't know if Ice Baby's going to be there for game 1 or game 4 if they get to that point. I mean, they're kind of up in the air. How do you think that helps LG?
Well, one way it helps Luminosity is obviously the fact that if Chapo is going to be playing the jungler position for United, I don't think that United have had that much time to spend with Chapo and scrims. I know that they've probably gotten a few in there, but not as many as you would want with your main roster jungler. So I think that as far as the confidence booster is concerned, that should probably help with the morale of Luminosity, knowing that they're going to be going into their first competitive set against a team with a sub. Not to say that Chapo's a bad player by any means,
sure, but not the main roster.
It definitely changes the main roster up a little bit and throws things for a loop here. And I think Luminosity as well already had some of their own concerns, because from what Kiki was telling me, the team has had pretty limited time for scrims themselves. A lot of the players going through the whole process of moving. I believe Joshi actually just embarking on his yesterday.
Sure. So we'll get to the predictions for the other casters right now. Everyone else predicting E United. Do you feel the same way?
I think that when we were first asked about this, it was without knowing that Ice Baby wasn't going to be there. I still feel as though United might currently be just the stronger team on paper, but I am really excited, kind of in the same way that Luminosity is, to see what these guys can bring forward. I think that a big thing that they're trying to look for right now is just Kiki and the guys seeing where they're at from their sets this week, and then trying to just move forward from there.
Luminosity trying to get off to a pretty good start, and they've got a good chance up against United with a sub. Thank you very much, Taco, for joining us and talking about Luminosity. On the other side, we'll be talking to Hindu Man about a team that I opened with, and that's Dignitas.
Team up, play God. SMITE on Nintendo Switch. Download for free on the Nintendo eShop today.
Welcome back, everybody. As I mentioned, Dignitas has been looking very, very good so far, but another test ahead of them, a team that's played a decent amount. And to talk about Team Dignitas, I've got Graham Hindu Man Hatfield sitting right next to me. Last time we did a correspondence segment, we opened up on a kind of awkward foot, so I just don't want to do that this time.
Okay.
Great. Dignitas looking pretty good.
What was I supposed to do with that?
No, that's exactly what I wanted. It's kind of like a bit where I'm like, hey, I don't want it to be awkward, and then we both make it awkward right away. But then I'm like, I feel like it's a success, and I act like it's a success.
It's what they pay me for, just to make it as awkward as possible.
Right.
More than anything else. Talking about awkward, the asthma mic gets even louder. Apologies for that.
Yeah.
Dig have got LG this week.
They do.
They get a bye week.
Well, it's not a bye. They have to play the games.
Oh, wait, I'm a correspondent. I don't get to say my opinion.
No.
Do I get to say my opinion as
you
a correspondent?
Yes, you will right after this, actually, because we do predictions after both sides of the correspondents have gotten a chance to talk. You think it'll be that easy for Dignitas?
Yeah. Take into account that Dignitas have already played Space Station Gaming, which were an established team, and we had to, go through the fact that this Dignitas roster hasn't really played together too much. Then the week after, they get a best-of-5 set against Rival, who are on their sort of level. If not, a lot of people expect them to outperform Dignitas and take that set 3-2, which we then saw Rival go on and beat Knight. So it's probably making Dignitas pretty confident right about now.
I mean, they're sitting at 2-0 right now, and then LG is thought of as probably the weakest team in the league on paper, though we haven't gotten a chance to see them play yet. This will be their debut game. how do you? I mean, is there any chance that Dignitas gets a little bit overconfident here? I mean, this looks like a David versus Goliath matchup.
Speaking to the Dig boys themselves, though, they're going to be down to earth quite a bit. They're actually well aware that this should be a David-Goliath matchup, where they should be Goliath in this instance, unlike the stories in the Bible to an extent, where David comes out of nowhere and wins. But hey, yeah. I don't think that's going to happen with this LG squad. LG haven't had as much practice, from what I understand, as they would have liked. Dignitas are coming off the back of 2 very successful games, and they get a week break after this. They're not playing the week after, but then following that, they've got 2 big games, Knights and Splice.
Oh, wow.
In week 5. So the problem they're going to have is they kind of not afford to overlook LG too much, take down this 3-0 nice and quick, and then they have 2 weeks to prep, watch the other teams, Knights and Splice play, try and get a feeling for it.
I think that having the bye week right after this actually helps them a ton, because I think you're right. If they had to play Splice and Knights next week, they might be overlooking LG a little bit here, but having that week buffer certainly can help out. I mentioned Ataraxia during my opening and talking about how well he's playing. I don't think a lot of people were excited about him joining this roster initially by player skill necessarily, but clearly proving those players wrong.
Ataraxia's always been a staple of any team to an extent. Whenever he's been on a team for this roster, he's always been the one that's been consistently trying to put out the damage numbers in the mid to late stages of the game, as you'll see. Most of the action, though, with the likes of Trix and Cuva on a roster, it's always going to be focused in the early game and the plays they make, and Ataraxia will go overlooked quite considerably. But the way he performed was fantastic this past week or two.
He's been looking great. I think that Dignitas has really meshed together pretty quickly, and I'm very excited to see how they continue to do. And as we get ready to take some predictions here, I feel like I know where you're going, Graham.
Yeah, definitely.
LG.
Definitely LG, 100%. Yeah. I have full confidence in them playing very well and getting a 3-0 victory against Dignitas.
It's April 10th, by the way. I see on your book here that you forgot the 0 on the 10th.
My bad.
That's not the 1.
Sorry. Dig win 3-0. If it goes longer than that, I'll be really surprised.
I really think that LG, if LG is going to win this set, they've got to come out with something crazy, right? Like it's got to be something.
Murdering Ataraxia in the car park could really help.
That's not what I would suggest. That's all I'm going to say about that. Everyone else also on the Dignitas trade. Good Lord. Luminosity.
What were you expecting? Like, that's the real thing here. What are you expecting? I mean, LG is this roster.
No, that's what I expect. Yeah. I just also expect a little bit better advice than what you gave.
Oh,
I was going to say maybe some sort of crazy mid laner, let Oceans be creative. Like Kiki could play Bastet support. Afro support maybe. That's now we're on to something, Graham. I mean, I'm not asking you to help LG, but maybe not what you suggested initially.
I think it's an easier option.
Okay.
Just say it.
All right. It's time to move on. Let's just bring it. Yep, that's perfect. Thank you, Tyler. We're going to go to commercial break because it's necessary. Yeah, we'll see you in a sec.
Hey everybody, Agro here. This year's SPL is going to be amazing. Having all the players here and on LAN, it's going to be a blast. But I've got something else exciting to introduce to you as well. Fantasy esports are coming to the SMITEPro League. The fantasy picks platform Prize Picks is challenging you to put your SPL knowledge to the test. Users over the age of 18 who reside in eligible US locations will be able to visit SMITEPicks.com and flex their knowledge about our top players. If you're eligible, you'll be able to choose from 2 to 4 players from different teams participating on a match day. The prize pick system will assign each player a score based on their predicted performance in that day's games. Then you'll predict whether each player you choose will go over or under that projected score. But you have to answer correctly for each player you've chosen in order to win. If you're interested, make sure you head on over to SMITEPicks.com to read all your terms and conditions and put your SPL knowledge to the test.
And welcome back. We've all had a chance to sit down and realize that some suggestions Hinduman makes are not serious. They are all jokes. That's what I'm now legally required to say. We're talking SCL now. Finch will be joining me in just a second, but first take a look at some of the standings so you can see where all the teams stand. That's why they're called standings. Heat Uprise with an upset victory over Hype Unit in the Xbox North American scene. We'll be talking about that in just a second. On the European side of things, Rival continues to look very, very good. They are undefeated thus far, sitting at 5-0 after a win this last week. As far as PS4 goes, looking a little bit different there. It's still Shrimp Gang looking at 5-0. Cyclone pretty close, but Big Money Esports came just a little bit short this week of a victory over Shrimp Gang. It was a 2-0 victory, I do believe, for the Shrimp Gang. And of course, in Europe for PS4, that would be Out Cold Gaming, sitting at 5-0. So Xbox North America, the only region that does not have an undefeated team yet. And that might be a little bit of a surprise because, of course, that Hype Unit team is your defending world champions, and they're the only ones in a region without an undefeated record. In fact, they're in second place. And to talk about that, I've got John Finch sitting right next to me. Finch, I see that you wrote a horrible pun for your lower third.
For all 4 of them.
Wait, really? I only got to the first one. Oh,
yes,
yep.
It's going to keep going. So I hope you guys are ready. Yeah.
No. Okay, the fourth one isn't really a pun, necessarily.
Yeah, some of them are just facts.
Oh, okay. Facts.
I do want to point out, though, that we did go, and I think this was smart of you and whoever organized this, to go from the worst correspondent, Hindu Man, right into me to follow up. So immediately going to bump the quality of the show up.
You know, it wasn't, I don't think it was that bad. I think that our little bits we do in the opening where it's like awkward intentionally, I think that we could keep that going.
Right, there's quotes.
Right. That's what I'm doing in order to make it better. But then I just can't. I mean, you just don't know where it's going. You know, it's out into the ether. Who knows? But you're right. Now we're back on track and feeling good about it.
Can I read this out loud too and do it justice? I would really
take your single. I don't want to be on screen for this. No, his single. No, not me.
Yeah,
Thank
perfect.
You.
Heat Up Rise, Burn Hype Unit. That's awesome. I can't believe I got to write that and put that on screen. I love it. And the reason why this is important to talk about is just like you said in your intro, right? Is that Hype Unit are supposed to be the top team. They're the defending champions plus Bobby, which should be additive for the team. But and I assume it is. I'm just joking on that one. But I have really high expectations for what this team would be able to do. Layers is on this team, a ton of players who have been around this scene forever, like since day one. KP, whatever you want to call him, this guy's been around forever. But Hype Unit came out and were actually able to grab this win. This was one that happened off stream. Obviously, we couldn't quite bring this one to them, so I reached out to some of these players. They talked to me a little bit about what happened. Game 1, Hype Unit dominated, apparently. It sounded like early on what happened was every team that did those early invades, you're seeing in the SPL more often, was the team that came away the winner. So they grabbed Game 1. In Game 2, it was Heat Uprise who went for those invades. It worked for them. They got to an early lead, but they had a hard time holding on to it. It was a very close game, but eventually Heat Uprise were able to win the second one, so it was back and forth. But then in Game 3, I'm told that Heat Uprise dominated. So unfortunately, they couldn't quite close that one out on the side of Hype Unit. It's Heat Uprise who came away looking like the stronger team. And now that unfortunate DQ. Now this comes up, right? Because you can afford to lose to a good team like this once, but when you shoot yourself in the foot, now it really hurts.
It does. And now you're really behind the 8 ball, and you have to make up those games pretty quickly. And Heat Uprising, I mean, if you're not familiar with this roster, Crimson is the big one on this team. The mid laner there, he and Barotic have been battling for best mid laner on the console along with Fly for quite some time now. This team has legitimate talent on it. It's not like that Hype Unit can go, oh, we feel like winning now, so let's just win.
Right.
I think that this is going to be a legitimate contender.
I think so, too. Fatal Ghost on the squad, Delny's on the squad, Nick with him. I mean, this is a squad with a ton of talent on it, so I'm not too surprised, that they were able to do well. And I would say, too, that this could potentially be a good thing for them. I asked Bobby about it, and he said, inbound, obviously, he was saying, maybe this will help our team get back into shape. From what he told to me, maybe there was a little bit of lax in scrim environment and that sort of thing, and maybe like some confidence they'd be able to win no matter what. Hopefully this reminds them, hey, there are some good contenders in Xbox and A. You guys got to turn it up.
That's true. This is their first loss, quote-unquote, that they earned since the World Championship, so sometimes these teams need that reminder that they aren't invincible, and we'll see if that's what happens to Hype Unit. As for Europe, Rival still seems pretty invincible. This is despite having Dobson now on this roster. I don't have to. I could. I'm physically capable of it. They remain unrivaled.
Woo! Let's go. I love it. Can't believe you guys let me write these. It's going to keep happening. Especially if it stays this easy. I'm going to keep doing it. But they are unrivaled. 5-0. It's okay. It's okay, Ryan. 5-0 up at the top of the standings, and they continue to look better. The real big test for them was when they played Dabo's Disciples. That was when they had that swap between Dobson and Fly. And ever since then, I mean, I don't know who's going to stop them. They took down EP, European powerhouses, and that's just a roster that just can't stay stable. They haven't been able to field the same 5 players in a row at all yet. Not even one time.
That's not what you're looking for.
It isn't, and it's definitely not going to help you beat a team like Rival, who have a lot of strong players on that team too.
They do, but their set was pretty close. I mean,
there were some nice plays.
Much closer than it really should have been by my estimation. Game 2, if my memory serves, EP was off to a massive lead, and Rival just kind of made the plays necessary to come back in that game. So they stay undefeated, but I don't know that I would be feeling particularly great about where we are as a team if that was the performance we just put out.
Yeah, and I said to European powerhouses after that set, I was like, I hope that you guys are able to stay together, try and chain some of these good performances together, because it really was, like you said, it was a strong performance from them. They did have rival been on the ropes. Some of that I likely imagine is that you're looking across at a team that's very much struggled, and if your rival, you can slip a little bit in sets like that. It's just possible, but you got to make sure that you tighten those up and don't let them get that close.
On the other side, for PS4, we're back in North America here, and you can't hang with Shrimp Gang. Did I do that right?
Yes.
Was that good?
Absolutely.
Everything you hoped for?
I loved it.
I did it for you.
That one's more of a rhyme than
a pun necessarily.
Right,
yes. I got that because it rhymed. I could tell it rhymed because it did.
Perfect. That's what I wanted.
Talk to me about Shrimp Gang already.
I'd be more than happy to. They're obviously the top team over there. They've had a bunch of world champions on their team in their own right?
Yes.
From the Season 4 Worlds, right? If I remember correctly. Jumpa on this squad, Covey, Zaxi. I said Nick earlier. Nick was on this squad, so excuse me about that. But yeah, he's here on this team. Matt Coy's as well. And Matt Coy's the one I really want to highlight if I can, because I think there's been some question marks about Matt Coy's sometimes throughout his career occasionally. And I think that this is not one of those cases. I think Matt Coy's had a really impressive set for me from the support this time. He was really facilitating for this team. We don't often get to say that about the supports, but it's something that definitely jumped out for me. So even though Shrimp Gang are up at the top, and like I said, no team's been able to hang with them so far with the gang, they have dropped a game to everyone. When I went and looked, at least one to everybody that they've played. So they're not entirely untouchable. They're not unrivaled like Rival were, but they definitely are tough for everyone else to keep up with.
Wow, a pun and a rhyme in the same wow. This is why John Finch is our premier correspondent here on Esports Weekly. There's no doubt about it. And here's your best headline yet, Finch.
Let's see.
First win for VGS Gods.
Yeah, this one's just the truth. Yeah,
that's why I like
it. No puns in here, no rhymes.
Nope.
I was looking around for a storyline here in PS4 EU, and it just leapt out at me that finally VGS could get on the boards. And I'm happy for these guys that they were able to do it. It was a good win. It was very, very close. I went back and looked at it. It was 44+ minutes for Game 1, 39+ minutes for Game 2. So it was not easy. This is not a gifted win to them by any means. And I think that's an important one, that they can win a hard-fought victory.
I remember Claw Legend in this set was just nuts. He was playing jungle for the squad, swapped over to the mid lane, and he's been looking good. Very aggressive is the way that I would say it.
I didn't get this into the title, but the pun I wrote down was Claw Legend was the legend for this set. And then you took my little talking point there, so you couldn't have known. It's not your fault, obviously.
I couldn't have.
But yes, I did. I had that written right here. Just verify that for the audience. Claw Legend.
Whoa,
was
Finch,
the
I can't say that. Why would I ever?
Well, not that.
That's such a weird thing to write down, man. Why would you?
I'm down the bottom. I didn't mean that.
Like, Pecky's is a nice guy, man. Why would you bring him?
No one was supposed to. Okay, I'll close it.
Let's take a look at the schedule for this upcoming week so you can get prepared for your Monday right after SPL on Thursday, Friday, of course. It will be MV3 up against Bedtime's Calling to start us off on Monday, and then Shrimp Gang versus Cyclone. That's 1 versus 2 in PS4 North America, and we get to see if Hype Unit can bounce back up against Sugar Pea Squad to close out our Monday. Finch, before we let you go, I want to clue you in on a little secret that I wonder if our fans have gotten a chance to notice, and that's that usually I'm the guy who really likes puns.
Right.
But when anyone else does them, I hate them.
Yes.
And it's to throw you off the scent that I say more puns than anybody else. I don't know if it's working, but I think it's a good strategy for me personally.
Yeah, and what's really helps you is that I'm happy to be the pun guy. So,
yes.
So you can kind of play like you don't like it.
What if
you
and I combined forces?
I'd love to.
And became an unstoppable pun squad.
Yeah, what we need is me chair 1 on a call, you chair 2 on a desk, and then we kind of like bounce back and forth. There's nothing the other two can do about it.
That's right, and whoever's host will be miserable, and whoever's chair 2 on the cast will be miserable. And that's what we're looking for here at Skillshot. Right, that's what we're talking about. Great work, Finch. Talking about the SCL, of course. Thank you very much, Finch. On the other side, we're going to be talking about what you may have missed on last Tuesday, and that is the SMITE Minor League. I do this for a living. We'll see you in a sec. Welcome back, everybody. As I mentioned, it's time to move on to the minor league. And joining me once again Mr. Alex Sayanok, a.k.a. Anatoly. I don't have to worry about oh, that was clean. A little, like, gamer tag with you, because you just use Anatoly. I could say IG Anatoly, I guess.
You could, yeah. That's
what
my
does
Twitter.
IG stand for, by
it's
the way?
Infernal Gamers, my old Warcraft 3 clan.
How they doing?
They're not around anymore, but the memory lives on.
That's right.
Not too many
still keeping the dream alive for Infernal Gamers. Yeah. Totally, the SML in North America, I feel like we say this every single week, and it's just Armada stomping everybody.
It's pretty much the consistent theme week by week. They're still undefeated. They're 5-0, and their last week was a difficult challenge up against Sanguine. There was a lot of shenanigans, early game shenanigans from Yarkor's Bologna specifically in that first game. They did the SPL strat, where they throw the support, they throw the soul lane at you, they make it difficult for your speed buff to be contested cleanly, and also this Bologna was just a nightmare. Going shield bash right away, it's like Scream just died instantly.
And the horrific emblem, there's not a whole lot you can do in those sorts of situations, but despite the early good start for Sanguine, it didn't end up paying off for them ultimately.
Definitely not because of this play right here. Panitome tower dives tier 2, Snoopy buys time with the Aegis, allowing Scream to make the rotation, blinks for the kill, and then taunts afterwards. Typical Scream fashion. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, that's some Verizial nonsense right there if I've ever seen it. Scream is just one part of this team, though. That's what makes them so potent. I mean, it's if Scream is having a bad game, well, they still have literal Baskin in the solo lane. I mean, if you're going up against Armada, what are you looking to do now?
Honestly, there's no real weaknesses in holes you can exploit because of the top kills overall, Armada has 3 in the top 5 kill category between Scream at number 1 with 78 kills, Baskin at number 4 with 43, Snoopy at number 5 with 42. Number 2 and 3 is actually out of Sanguine, which is surprising between both Panitome and Shinto, but Baskin, specifically in the solo lane, he'll play aggressive or he'll play passive early game, Amaterasu game number 2, but Scream changing it up between the Naja struggling in game number 1 to the Arachne in game number 2, where he realized that, okay, in order to deal with Sanguine's early game shenanigans, he goes for the Arachne in game 2. He wasn't going to deal with that nonsense yet again.
No, why put yourself through that sort of situation? Scream, I mean, the dude's a world champion jungler, and to be number 1 in the entire minor league with kills when your team is this stacked also speaks to his kill secure skill, which is something that some players have and some players don't. And Baskin, I thought, always had the best kill securing in the entire league. You know, there's 5 players in the same dude, it always seems to be Baskin, but Scream put him to shame a little bit.
That's kind of what your jungler needs to do at the end of the day. Solo lane kind of just gets left in the dust in Season 6 with still all these purple and red buff invades. I still like the way Snoopy's been playing in this duo lane, kind of making sure that he'll transition well in the late game, going to the Chernobog, I believe, in game number 2, and that's been working out so far for Armada.
We've been talking about the standings a little bit, but just really the top end, because it's Armada there, 5-0. Team Cryptic actually the one that's closest to them now at 3-2. Those Sanguines had to play Armada twice already. What about Cryptic do you think it has given other teams trouble? Because they're also the only team that's taken a game off Armada so far this split.
That's true. They did take 1 game off of Armada, but I just don't know the longevity if they're able to do it if Armada continues to have this kind of success. Because like you mentioned before, Sanguine did have to face Armada off twice. Cryptic only having to face off against Armada once. They did have that one set up against Space Station Gold. They couldn't field a full roster of 5 players, so they unfortunately did have to lose and disconnect that game.
Have to wait and see if Armada continues to be immortal or if they might end up being human in the end. Thank you, Toli, for talking about the minor league in North America. Of course, that means we still have to talk about the European side of the minor league. We're going to go to a quick break as we get ready for Taco for her to talk about the European minor league.
Team up, play God. SMITE on Nintendo Switch. Download for free on the Nintendo eShop today.
Welcome back, everybody. As far as the European minor league goes, it's been a pretty close battle. as lopsided as NA has been so far, Europe's kind of been the opposite. In fact, the team that we expected to do what Armada's doing over North America is at the bottom. 1-4 for Out Cold as Flashpoint continue to look really good. They are sitting at 4-1. To talk a little bit more in depth about the region, I've got our European minor league correspondent Taco sitting by with us. Taco, Flashpoint is the team to beat right now in Europe, and I don't think a lot of people would have expected us to say that even this far in, 5 weeks in the books.
I think Flashpoint have just been taking a great advantage of how versatile a lot of compositions can be right now, and they also feel like one of the teams to me that truly responds throughout the duration of a drafting phase to try and come out with a better composition to topple what their opponents are choosing.
On the other side, Simplicity has also looked very, very good so far. Those two teams really battling for the top slots. Simplicity ends up taking down Out Cold this week. What have you seen from Simplicity that's impressed you so far?
I think that genetics has definitely been a key figure for this Simplicity team. It feels like a lot of their setup and a lot of their success comes off the back of how well is genetics really performing in a match. I think also that this has been a really consistent split so far for Fails. Probably some of his best performances so far in comparison to his time in the SPL with SK, which is surprising because, you know, it's two different forms of play, but I just think that he seems to have a lot more synergy with Death Panner on the Simplicity squad.
Yeah, they've looked great so far, but what about Maniac in that solo lane, man? He has looked so impressive as well. I mean, ever since week 1 where he has a really good set up against Out Cold, but they fall a little bit short, Maniac has looked great basically every week.
Yeah, Zero's essentially, or I shouldn't say Zero's, but Zero is out, you know, he's moved on. And
sure,
to have Maniac now with this team was a bit of an interesting fit, I think. At first, things looked kind of shaky, I think, for Simplicity. Not to say that, like, it was Maniac's fault to any extent, but Maniac felt fairly aggressive, and it seems like it took the rest of Simplicity about a week or so to catch up to that style of play. But after that, it definitely feels like Genetics and Maniac are able to play off of each other incredibly well. I feel as though a lot of those team fights are just so well handled because of the front line that Simplicity is able to provide.
Team Queso was able to get a big victory last week over Out Cold by playing very odd things. I mean, it's Warriors in mid lane and Giannis in the jungle. This week they have a little bit of a letdown, I'd say, but overall this team definitely seems to be unpredictable, not only in the way that they might play as far as their overall team, but also in the way they pick and ban.
Having Alpha Jackal as the coach for Queso, I think, was bound to bring this different sort of mentality. I think Alpha Jackal probably wanted a team that would be able to kind of fulfill those sort of janky compositions that he might theorycraft with them. But I think that for who they were going up against, it just felt a little bit out of the norm. It felt too out of the norm, I should say, for what Queso tried to run this past week and why I think they also happened to fall pretty short there. But as far as mechanics and potential is concerned, I definitely still think that Queso has the capability to work their way up in the standings, be a potential second place runner right now. I think first place might be slightly more difficult because Flashpoint, you're kind of relying on Flashpoint to drop the ball now. I
mean, Flashpoint has looked very, very good, as has Simplicity, as has Queso at times. The only team that really hasn't looked good on a 4-week loss streak is Out Cold Gaming. What is going on? Is this, or should we write them off? Should we just assume that they're not going to do well the rest of the split?
I don't want to say that like it's impossible for this team to come together and make some magic happen, but I'm not certain that that's going to be possible as long as the roster remains the same. I just feel like something definitely is not working. I mean, we saw Pretty Prime and Dimmy unable to carry when they got King Arthur and Merlin, arguably considered two of the best gods right now, and it just felt like Out Cold was still just so out of sync with each other. I think that that's the best way to put it. It's that not necessarily that these players are bad by any means, but it just feels as though they don't really mesh together as well as some of the other teams, and it's impacting the standings so heavily because all of the other teams in the European SML right now they're pretty damn good.
They're working really well as a unit in comparison to Out Cold, at least, where they got King Arthur Merlin 2 games in a row and went 0-2 quickly. Craziness. Let's look at the schedule and see what they've got in store for them this time around, trying to get on the board in the win column for the first time since week 1, and they've got your top seed Flashpoint to try and go up against. I'm not liking their odds all of a sudden, Taco. As for Armada, they've got Space Station Gold, the team that is undefeated against a team that is winless so far, so that should be one that Armada should be able to dominate. But man, that Queso Simplicity matchup is one that I'm really looking forward to.
This is where I think Queso has potential to really bring the standings back more towards their favor, because if they're able to beat Simplicity, that would be a massive momentum swing, I think, to help them try and maybe finish up the split strong, see if they can maybe sneak that second place spot away from Simplicity and potentially even take over first.
Man, it's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you're tuning in early on Tuesday, because our first match might just be the best one of the day. Thank you, Taco, for coming to talk about some European minor league. On the other side of this, we're going to be talking to Tom Battinger, the SK Gaming correspondent, about their matches this week. But first, Anatoly, former teammate of Zapman, got a chance to sit down and talk to Zap about how SK has looked so far into this young season. Let's take a look.
Thank you for joining me today, Zapman. Hunter for SK Gaming. I wanted to get your thoughts on Season 6 so far. How has your team been progressing?
I'm liking Season 6 a lot more than Season 5 because, you know, we're doing all this kind of invade jank and the hunters get a lot of solo farm, and now we're ahead of the junglers, so if they ever come to my lane, they're going to die.
There's a lot of surprising starts, I would say, for all of SPL, not just your team. Week number 1, I wanted to go over that matchup against PK. What did you learn? What can you tell me didn't work?
Well, I learned our map control is top-notch, and I learned our team fights are garbage. So, I mean, it was a good, you know, like test ourselves with where do we stand, and we think we outplayed them on the map. Even though they had a lot of kill leads, we had a lot of gold leads and things like that, but they definitely outplayed us in the team fights and even the small skirmishes. So that gave us, you know, things to work on during scrims, and that's what we've been doing.
Yeah, you guys looked solid. Despite the scoreline, I thought that you guys had a remarkable performance. Next week was a complete 180 shift up against Trifecta, but despite finding the 3-0 victory, I was watching the player cams after Game 3. You didn't look too thrilled after the 3rd victory.
No, we were all kind of raging because we wanted to win really clean. We thought we were pretty kind of sloppy. We were really clean Game 1, Game 2, Game 3. We thought we were sloppy. I mean, we went and we watched it back, and we were like, why were we upset? You know, they were all like sub-25-minute games. We were pretty happy with it.
And then now in week number 3, you guys are facing off against United, a little unknown as to what they're really going to bring to the table. How are you preparing for this matchup?
Well, we're actually fortunate enough that they're playing LG on Thursday, so we get to at least see what they're kind of doing, and they got a lot of good players. Vedium is really good. I mean, he's been playing since forever, and Collis, and I'm not sure if Ice will be there or not, but they got a pretty stacked roster. So we're gonna take them seriously, and hopefully come out on top.
So far for the SPL, is there any surprises, whether it's the meta or any sort of team results for you?
Man, I feel like Rival coming out of the gate looking hot. For them being a new team and performing so strongly with mixed NA-EU really goes to show the skill level of those players, and I think I've been pleasantly surprised because I like everyone on their team at how well they've been doing.
Well, thank you so much, Salmon, for your time. Hunter for SK Gaming, best of luck against United.
Thank you.
You know, I wasn't sold on clean-shaven Zapman. I was kind of disappointed. He had some good facial hair going on, but after that interview, I'll let Steve go. It's a good look for him. It's looking clean. Looking clean as well, sitting to my left, Tom F. Battinger.
Yep.
Clean and bright, I will say. That is a bright jacket.
Yeah, no, shout out to Spiff Space. They're homies, and definitely some of the cool stuff, so I'm rocking it.
He's rocking it.
Yo, I even got my name here.
No way.
Yeah, dude. It's that custom.
Oh, it is.
Where is it?
F.NY.
Yep.
That's so you know it's the Florida Department of Transportation in New York.
I can't actually hold this.
That's
with
a
my
little.
hand, but
Yeah, that's not how that works.
No, that works.
Yeah,
that works.
Yeah, that's doing it.
That's
okay,
what's up.
You got it going. SK Gaming. This is we talked a little bit about them week 1. This is going to be our first chance to watch them back and see how they've taken that loss and really adjusted how they've played.
Sure.
How do you think they're feeling going into this matchup against the United?
Well, I mean, anytime you ask the guys, you know, how you're feeling, the answers are, well, you know, we've got a fierce competitor across the way, but we're going to be good. Realistically speaking, I think that SK Gaming are one of the more grounded teams here. I think that they came into the season really understanding, hey, we're good, perhaps better than people think. They came in and they won, and they kind of got celebrated for it as well.
Sure.
They lose a game. Now, if you're Pittsburgh Knights or you have these gigantic expectations, I think that alters a lot of things. For SK, they didn't really have that coming into the season, so they can win some, they can lose some. And at the end of the day, I think that SK are just going to be comfortable being the type of team they are.
Yeah, I mean, they looked great when they got a chance to go up against Trifecta. That was their first time we got to see them after their losses against the Knights, of course. But now they've got some momentum underneath their belt, right? And they're feeling a little bit better, I think, especially after they stomped Trifecta. I mean, 3 25-minute games.
I mean, you gotta.
That's the way it's got to be, right?
Absolutely. I guess some unintentional shade, collateral damage, if you will, towards Trifecta. They're not as good as a lot of the teams, SK included. And I think that if you're going to look at this league in an objective sense, and you're SK Gaming, you have to win this game the way that they won this game. If it was anything but what we saw, it would have been a mental loss. So SK came out swinging. But you were talking earlier about how the team was feeling, and I wanted to bring up a quote from Neil Ma, because I had asked them, coming into the season, there wasn't everybody wearing SK jerseys. This was very much Pittsburgh Knights and Dignitas.
There were no pink Adidas around.
No, not at all. But SK quickly, and I, looking at all the places the community gathers, more than just Reddit, SK started to get a fan base. And so I was like, yo, does that change, anything? And Neil Ma very, very tactfully, he's like, we're all really individually motivated people with a strong desire to win. We had little to no fans beforehand, before our Worlds run. We were all playing to prove ourselves to those who didn't believe in us. Disproving naysayers is a very strong motivation. That being said, playing for those people who believe in you is a stronger motivator. So now that they have these fans behind them, it's almost like we did this before when we were the only 6 people, 5 dudes and a coach believing in them. Now that we got some folks behind us, it feels a little bit better, and they feel even stronger against their matchups.
I think they should, especially with the way Belair is playing in the solo lane. I mean, they gave Ducky King Arthur 3 games in a row and smacked it around 3 games in a row with that Camazot selection. So Belair has been playing very well. How do you think that he will fare, and the whole team, up against Benji in a United?
That's a little rough. I think that Belair will have problems with Benji. I think that Benji is still one of the... Everybody's talking about solo lanes, how so crazy, and everybody's celebrating Fine OK, which they absolutely should. But don't forget that Benji hasn't played yet. He has always been the scariest dude. And here's the thing, if I can touch. I know I'm not their guy, but if I can touch on this real quick. Benji, and I would say this to his face, Benji's great when he cares, and he doesn't always give a damn. Coming here to LAN and playing every game here, everybody's plugged in, and all these players, even some that have had that issue before, are locked in. Having Benji locked in is going to be scary. Belair individually, I think, will definitely struggle. SK as a team might be strong enough to deal with that prowess, that power out of the solo lane.
Let's see what the entire casters had to say about where this one is going. And wow, 4 for 4 on SK. Is their own correspondent going to be the one to break the streak?
No. SK is still good. SK has looked fantastic. I think that a stutter step against one of the more storied teams in the league is what it is. I don't really look at the gameplay against Trifecta as an indicator of how they're going to do going forward. Again, it's a pop quiz you got to nail. And they did that. They got 100. So here, realistically, I think that SK Gaming will come out on top, but this will be one of the more interesting matches for sure. It'll be fun. Make sure you tune in.
Make sure you tune in. That'll be Friday, of course, starting around 1:30ish. Tom, thanks for joining us here
of course, thank you.
on Esports Weekly. Don't forget, we are starting at 1 o'clock tomorrow on Thursday as we get ready for that matchup. We're going to have one more quick break. As we come back, we'll be ready to close the show here on Esports Weekly.
Hey everybody, Aggro here. This year's SPL is going to be amazing. Having all the players here and on LAN, it's going to be a blast. But I've got something else exciting to introduce to you as well. Fantasy esports are coming to the SMITEPro League. The fantasy picks platform Prize Picks is challenging you to put your SPL knowledge to the test. Users over the age of 18 who reside in eligible US locations will be able to visit SMITEPicks.com and flex their knowledge about our top players. If you're eligible, you'll be able to choose from 2 to 4 players from different teams participating on a match day. The Prize Pick system will assign each player a score based on their predicted performance in that day's games. Then you'll predict whether each player you choose will go over or under that projected score. But you have to answer correctly for each player you've chosen in order to win. If you're interested, make sure you head on over to SMITEPicks.com to read all your terms and conditions and put your SPL knowledge to the test.
Welcome back, everybody. That does it for our correspondence segment and everything like that. We'll be going over the schedule in just a moment, but I want to take a moment to touch on something FDOT just said at the end of the SK Gaming correspondence section, and that's that when Benji really cares, he's a really scary dude to go up against. He's one of the best in the league. And I think that this E-United roster is one that could end up being a sleeper. All the preseason predictions and all this stuff about, the Knights and Rival and Splice and Dig. No one was really that excited about E-United either. And I think there's good reason. I think that there's been a lot of ups and downs for individual players on this roster throughout their careers. But watch out if this team gets hot. I think that Vedium fits under that exact same build as Benji, and I agree with FDOT that when they really get invested, they are some of the best players in the world. Vedium is one of the most storied LAN ADCs of all time. Regular season may not be as strong, but every game's at LAN now. The United team is one to watch out for. Week 1, I expect they might struggle a little bit, the Ice Baby situation, everything like that. But once they're here and grounded and ready to go, keep an eye out for E-United. They might be one of the more scary teams in the SPL. As I mentioned, we have got to look at the schedule now so you can see everything that's coming on Thursday, rather. Today's Wednesday. Thursday, 1 p.m., E-United, Luminosity Gaming, your first look at both E-United and LG, and then they both play again on Friday. LG gets a tough draw on Dignitas, and E-United gets a tough draw on SK Gaming. Here's a secret for you guys at home. Every draw is tough. All these teams are looking really good so far in this Season 6 SPL, and that's what makes it so exciting. Thank you so much for watching Esports Weekly. We know you have a lot to do on your Wednesday afternoon, so appreciate you spending it here with us. Again, tomorrow, 1 p.m., we hope to see you there. As for next week, the Esports Weekly start time is a little bit in flux right now. It will be on Wednesday. It just might be a little bit later, might be a little bit earlier. Here's a little bit of a preview for you guys. We got a big patch notes show coming next Wednesday. You can see me there, and then, of course, on Esports Weekly, it will air directly after patch notes. Just not going to promise you a time. Show up for patch notes. You won't be disappointed. Then you can just stick around and see a bunch of great esports content. What could be better than that? Thank you again for watching. We'll catch you next time. See you later.
Brought to you by Skillshot, Hi-Res Studios, Titan Forge, INAP, SteelSeries,